It's not exactly a secret that Bleach just doesn't get games. Dragon Ball and One Piece get games almost yearly. Naruto has the Storm series, and even new manga like Jujutsu Kaisen are getting games. What is Bleach getting? Well, besides a dozen mobile games, Bleach is just not getting any console releases. And no, Brave Souls does not count. The latest Bleach console release, Soul Resurrection or Soul Ignition, released 13 years ago now, and it's okay. I know the title does say best and all, but that's because there's just not much competition when it comes to Bleach games. Other than appearances in other games and mobile games, which I would say those don't count, Bleach's last game before this one was on the Portable, a handheld. That's most of the series' games, either on the PSP or the Nintendo DS. Most of said games haven't aged great either, being mostly 2D fighters or other miscellaneous random genres. Point is, I would say Soul Resurrection is the quote-unquote best Bleach game. So whether you've heard of it or you think this video just sounds interesting, enjoy, as today we're exploring one of Bleach's many forgotten games. First teased in November 2010 in an issue of V-Jump, Soul Resurrection was revealed to be a Bleach-themed action game. While the reveal teaser doesn't show much action, it is clear that the game takes place largely in the Wako Mundo arc, with Ichigo, Uryu, and Rukia at least being playable. But that's pretty much all you can tell. From then on, the slow wait for the next Bleach game started, and fans would have to wait until next month's Jump Fiesta to learn more. And well, here is where things get a little messy. 14 years later, nothing about this showcase is available online, and that's if it was even recorded in the first place. If I do find articles mentioning said game or event at this time, the images on the articles have either ceased to exist or they just use the already available V-Jump scans. This is a huge issue with the game, as a lot of its history has just not been archived. Even if I try and use the Wayback Machine on these articles, I find very little, if anything. I do know two big things about the big stage reveal at Jump Fiesta though. There was a playable demo that would later be released digitally on the PlayStation Store, and there had to have been some kind of trailer shown. The demo is one mission completely centered around the Hellverse film, featuring Ichigo clad in his skull outfit as well as the film's villain Kokudo. I am completely sure the reason this was chosen to be the demo was because earlier that month, the movie had just come out. So basically, you see it too. It was a way to promote it. Then the trailer. I'm not actually completely sure one was shown. Yet again, there's barely any info for this game still available, but I can't imagine showing off and releasing a demo for this game without some kind of trailer. When have you ever seen a game get full gameplay that's accessible before a trailer's ever shown? So I'm sure you're with me on this one. If I was to guess which trailer was shown, I can only assume it was this one, still found on the PlayStation Asia YouTube channel. After Jump Fiesta, Soul Resurrection would continue to receive new scans and previews through V-Jump. Characters like Toshiro and Haribel would be revealed, showing that the game would cover even more of Bleach's story than ever before. Through the Wayback Machine, we can see that the webpage for this game did eventually begin to change after this time. Eventually, instead of just advertising the demo, the page transformed into an actual store page, showcasing preview images, information, and most of all, a release date. In Japan, Soul Resurrection would release June 23rd, 2011. The game would also start to receive tons of English trailers, setting up an August release in the US, 2 months after its initial release in Japan. Releasing only for the PS3 and with a $60 price tag, Soul Resurrection would receive very mixed reviews, earning a 58 on Metacritic but a high of 7 on IGN. And with that, the game sat. Bleach Soul Resurrection sat for many years, keeping its place as Bleach's last console game. If you wanted to play the game today, you would have to bust out your PlayStation 3 and order the game online. A used copy on eBay goes for about 20 to 30 bucks, but even I personally would say that's a bit too much. Then say you wanted a brand new unopened copy. Well, you better have about $100 lying around. $100 for a game that is estimated to take about 4 hours to play through. Or you could just emulate it. I'm just kidding. I'd never emulate a game. Come on, I wouldn't do that to Sony at all. You can't play this game for literally $0 if you just... Oh god. And I'd love to give you all the juicy development details, but if I thought information on the game was gone, the development details may have just never existed. I can't find anything besides a staff list, meaning I don't know how long the game was in development or if there were any factors like a time crunch. Besides the obvious like being developed by Japan Studio and Race-Jin, this list tells me that the game was directed by Shigeru Maekawa. Maekawa has worked on tons of PlayStation and Nintendo titles, on some kinda big names like Gravity Rush 2, which I only pointed out because I really want to play. The game also features names from the anime, having both the English and Japanese voice actors credited for their roles. But there is a name that's way more interesting on the same list. Guess who also worked on Bleach Soul Ressurection? Creator of Bleach, Tite Kubo. Apparently. Due to the lack of details around development, I'm left with the list that says the game is quote-unquote supervised by Tite Kubo. Yes, supervised means he was involved in the game in some way, but that could have been as small as something like letting them make a Bleach game in the first place. Kubo has a blog-like site where he answers questions, and in question 508, he is asked, what specific tasks does Kubo-sensei do when taking on the role of supervisor for things like Brave Souls, movies, anime, etc.? For things like Brave Souls, do you check and make corrections to the designs that have been submitted to you? And Kubo responds saying, the degree of supervision varies depending on the case. Yep, that right there proves that it either was the simplest involvement you can think of, or he may as well had a huge hand in this game. And we'll just never know. Personally, I'm leaning more towards little to no involvement. Reason being that if we assume Soul Resurrection was in development for at least 2 years, being 2009 and 2010, Kubo would have been very busy with the serializing manga and the Hellverse movie. The manga was crossing from the ending of the Aizen saga to the Lost Agent arc, and Kubo was personally involved with major aspects of the Hellverse film. Point is, I don't see him having any time for this game at all. And then there's a lot of the choices in this game that I just can't imagine the creator really signing off on. Bleach Soul Ressurection is an action game, more specifically a Dynasty Warriors type of action game. Dynasty Warriors, while being its own game series, has managed to become a subgenre of beat 'em up often replicated by other IPs. Some similar games you might recognize are One Piece Power Warriors, Persona 5 Strikers, or Berserk and the Band of the Hawk. These games are very hack and slash focused, setting you up in a one-man army type of situation where you want to focus on combos, capturing areas, freeing allies, etc. They normally feature multiple playable characters with button mashy movesets and a huge map littered with hundreds of enemies. Bleach Soul Ressurection fits most of these categories, opting out of the more commonly used map control aspects. Personally though, I would say it's closer to a typical hack and slash. Reason being, there's a lot of big aspects from the Dynasty Warriors series that were skipped over. The game features 21 playable characters and a story spanning from the opening of Wako Mundo to the final battle with Aizen, with 2 extra characters from the Hellverse film. Each character has a unique moveset, but they all share the basics. All characters feature a dash, normal button mash combo, ranged attack, special button, an awakened form, and a super attack. It's also pretty important, and I think cool, to note that a majority of these characters' moves slightly change, if not transform, when done in the air or their awakened form. You have a spiritual pressure gauge that determines how much you can do at once, but you can upgrade that as well as every other aspect with the skill tree. You can also enhance abilities by purchasing these character things. For example, on screen you can see if I purchase Kisuke, I gain a counter. All this for fighting these never-ending mobs of enemies in a Dynasty Warriors type of game, and that's pretty much it. Start mission, dash, button mash, fight boss, mission over, repeat. Other than the story, the only other content the game provides is 28 other random missions, with each of them having unique conditions like being unable to jump or just beat 100 enemies. I personally didn't run through every single one of them, but I do know they get harder and harder the more you do. Overall, Soul Resurrection is a pretty basic experience, with the main appeal definitely being the roster, and I assume the developers thought so too. Now, it's time for my thoughts. And well, I'll start by saying I played through the whole entire story in under 3 hours. That's it. Then I took another hour and was able to clear the first 6 extra missions. And if I was to make a guess based off that alone, I'd say the game probably doesn't take more than 15 hours to play everything. That leaves only the character grinds. And if I was to try and max every character skill tree, I'm sure I could if I put the time in. But there's not really a point of even trying. Not because it's not fun, no, but because of how they have it structured. According to PSN trophies, it will take at least 6 hours of non-stop grinding to max a single character. There's over 20 characters, meaning it'll take around 130 hours at minimum. The only viable strategy to do this grind isn't fun either. It's the same mission over and over and over again. If the only endgame content you are going to provide is to grind up the characters as much as possible, it should be possible. I'm only playing this game still because I like the hack and slash style with Bleach characters. Maxing those characters is the coolest part. Playing as them is the coolest part. But no, screw that. I am not maxing them. And because I don't want to max them, that leaves me with absolutely nothing else to do. The missions suck, and say I wanted to do the grind, say I wanted to put 100+ hours into this game. Why would I want to do it on these unappealing levels? I understand areas like Hueco Mundo being bleak. It's meant to look like that, okay? But why does that level look better than the ones inside of the palace? But before I get any farther and rip on the game anymore, I have to just say it. I'm very sure after replaying this game that it was either very rushed or perhaps just didn't get any funding to begin with. The game feels like it's lacking a ton of content that obviously should have been there. Then you see how split the quality is at some points and wonder whether they just had to make some sacrifices. While the combat does feel super polished and in turn fun, it seems like everything else took really big hits. A huge example is the retelling of the story. With 14 missions, it's pretty obvious based off that number alone that that's not nearly enough to cover 2 whole arcs of Bleach. Huge important chunks of the story are missing and just never happen. Like, what would you say the best part of the Hueco Mundo arc was? I would say Ichigo versus Yukiura. Easily. Well, I have some news for you. The first half of that fight gets off-screened. Ichigo's death, and even his comeback as Vasta Lorde. Oh, and you can't forget Yukiura's death. All off-screen. Tons of moments are also missing from Karakura Town too. Huge characters like Yamamoto don't even appear on screen. Not for a single second. In fact, there's not much cutscenes at all, and when there is, the characters are really lifeless and awkward.
You don't look very tough, but there certainly are a lot of you.
Here's my best example of why it seems some aspects had to be sacrificed. While the story-related cutscenes are weird, the actual battle animations look great. I would even go as far as comparing them to Naruto Storm from around this time. They just look that good. The good animation does go above and beyond too, expanding into brand new exclusive attacks just for this game. Characters that hadn't yet shown what they can do in the manga and anime were given improvised moves and actions exclusive to this game. And surprisingly, they're actually really good. My favorite example of this is Shunsui. When this game came out, we only knew a small part of his abilities from the manga and anime. Therefore, they had to improvise to make him playable. He ended up with these shadow-like abilities and a heavy emphasis on wind. Just look at his super attack. If there was a point where Kubo had actual input, I would say it's most definitely these exclusive attacks, as most of them are just as cool as some of the things he would think of. Regardless of why though, I just wish this effort could have gone into the actual missions, as the game is really fun to play, the battle animations look good, and it's got a great playable roster. Soul Resurrection is insanely fun to play. I personally love Dynasty Warriors types of games, have been since growing up, and originally playing this game is what started my love for them. So of course I just absolutely love this game. The roster is the biggest cause of that. It's very apparent that they went above and beyond for every single playable character. While there is some obvious picks missing, there's also a good chunk of characters I wouldn't imagine being in a Bleach game to begin with. My favorites were Stark and Haribel, with Stark feeling like the fastest character that also has tons of fun, flashy, quick moves, and he's really strong. I love that he was included because in the series, he just isn't on screen much, even though he's apparently the strongest Espada. Then Haribel was also tons of fun to play, but with her I had these moments where she could like juggle the enemies and she could like pull off these combos, and that just made me really like playing her. Some other characters that I thought were really cool to play as were Vasto Lorde Ichigo, Kokudo, and Grimmjow. And I can definitely say after playing every single one of them, each character is unique and definitely warrant their spots on the roster. The characters and their gameplay were obviously the main focus of Soul Resurrection, with the rest of the game feeling shit. For whatever reason it might be for though, it doesn't really matter. I just wish the rest of the game could have gotten support past release or something. If the game had maybe received more unique missions, I feel like the game could have really had a chance of standing out. The available missions are just very dull, with most of the time it just being run through the level and there's a boss. What I'm really trying to say though is that Dynasty Warrior games have multiple different types of objectives. Whether it's capturing an area, saving a character, anything. These allow for not only more missions, but more unique missions. Something Soul Resurrection really needs. I feel like tons of these issues could have been improved in future expansions to the game, or simply could have been there from the start. But that's all I'm really gonna say. We could say everything negative about this game could have been there, or it could have been improved after launch, but I think that's unfair to say as we don't know any of the details behind this game. So we're gonna leave it at that. Soul Resurrection is obviously far from a perfect Bleach game, but I would say one doesn't exist and we're probably not close to one. After replaying the game though, I think this is probably the best game we've gotten. My reason being that this is the only game I can still come back to and have fun, other than maybe Brave Souls. But who really knows what the best Bleach game is? I definitely don't. It's whatever you like playing the most. So for now, let's end this section with some silly random things about this game I couldn't really fit anywhere else. First up is Aizen. He's the worst character in the game. Yeah, seriously. I can't imagine how this happened. He moves super slow and has super slow moves in a game where you have to quickly blitz through mobs of enemies. It's a W design. Soifone is one of the most unique characters from this game, and that's for one super random reason. She's a boss finishing animation. If you happen to finish a boss with her stinger thing, she does this. I freaked the first time I seen it, it's really cool. Soul Resurrection actually has a fully animated intro with original music just for this game. Well, at least in the US version, the music is original. The Japanese version of this game contains the music from one of the openings. The opening is also an all-original animation done just for this game by Studio Pierrot. Cool thing for a one-off game to have. And the last thing I want to say is Final Getsuga Ichigo. In order to obtain this Ichigo, you must clear every single mission in the game. Okay, it's a hidden reward from doing everything in the game. That's normal. But he's the cover character. I cannot unlock the cover character in this game till I literally do every single piece of content the game has. That's like not getting Naruto in Naruto Storm till you beat the whole story. Kinda beats the point of it all. So there was a whole different outro for this video, but since of course they dropped Bleach game news as I'm working on the Bleach game video, forget that outro, it doesn't need to exist. First, as I'm making this video, apparently a brand new Bleach game related domain has been registered. Don't get your hopes up though, as we never know, it could really be another mobile game, but according to my buddy over there, he says and I trust him because he's my Bleach expert, it should be a console game. Let's pray. I got my fingers crossed. And as I finished recording the outro again, K-Lab, the people behind Brave Souls, announced another Bleach game. My expert from before says that the two projects are separate, with the first project apparently being bigger than this K-Lab game. Cool though, that's 2 more chances for the best Bleach we've ever gotten. Yet again, fingers crossed. Check out my buddy though. Regardless of all the jokes, he does help me with a lot, and he helped me a lot for this video, and I thank him for that. He does a lot of Bleach stuff on his pages, so if you like that, go check him out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to bother re-recording my outro now that it's kind of irrelevant with this new information, so I guess I'll just leave you guys with a question. I just want to ask, what's your favorite Bleach game? Leave it in the comments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.